I married him for money, because of a bet. I thought I could endure 6 months and come out with a clear conscience. But on the first night, he showed up bleeding, and when I looked into his eyes, dark, dangerous, utterly destroyed, I knew I was screwed. Because that man was not just a mafia boss. He was my biggest mistake, and it's the best thing that ever happened to me. This is the story of how a former nun married the devil and saved him from hell. You're not ready for what's coming next. Dante Caruso's hand trembled imperceptibly as he signed the civil marriage papers. Not from nervousness. Nervousness was for weak men, and Dante Caruso was not weak. He had ruled the New York underworld with an iron fist for 15 years, since he was only 23. No one dared challenge him. But now, standing before a woman dressed in a simple white cotton dress, without jewelry, without makeup, with the purest brown eyes he had ever seen, something inside him wavered. The bride wasn't smiling. She wasn't crying. She just looked at him with an expression that mixed resignation and a silent courage that deeply disturbed him. "You may kiss the bride," said the judge with bureaucratic boredom. Dante leaned in, but she turned her face away at the last second. His lips brushed her cold cheek. "That was a mistake," she whispered so softly that only he heard. Something inside Dante's chest tightened in a way he didn't understand. "Too late, princess," he replied with a sarcastic smile that didn't reach his dark eyes. 3 weeks earlier, Dante had sat in his private club, surrounded by the smoke of expensive Cuban cigars and the murmur of powerful men discussing territory, money, and blood. "You'll never get married, Caruso," taunted Giovanni Rossi, his rival and reluctant business partner, pouring 50-year-old whiskey into a crystal glass. "What woman could stand you?" The table erupted in laughter. Dante didn't laugh. His eyes remained fixed on Giovanni, calculating, always calculating. "Want to bet?" Dante said, his voice low and dangerous. The room fell silent. "I bet I get married before you turn 50. That gives you 2 months, old man." Giovanni narrowed his eyes. "To any streetwalker, that doesn't count. To the most unlikely woman you can imagine," Dante retorted, leaning forward. "A saint. A nun. You choose, Giovanni. And when I win, the southern territory of Manhattan is mine." The silence was deafening. Giovanni chewed his cigar, his eyes gleaming with malice. "I accept. But she has to be a real nun, and you have to stay married for 6 months. If she runs away, or you get a divorce before then, the territory is mine." "Done." Dante extended his hand. They shook. Their fate was sealed. Finding a former nun was more difficult than Dante had imagined. Her criminal connections were vast, but infiltrating the religious world presented unique challenges. It was his lawyer, Marco, who finally provided the solution. Former sister Clara Benedetti. Marco placed a photo on the table. The woman had enormous brown eyes, dark brown hair tied in a simple ponytail, no makeup, and wore modest clothing. She left the convent 6 months ago. She now works at a shelter in the Bronx. Poor family, no living relatives. Perfect. Why did she leave? Dante asked, studying the photo. There was something in those eyes that disturbed him. Questions of faith, apparently. Documents say she requested dispensation from her vows due to vocational doubts. And why would she agree to marry me? Dante raised an eyebrow. Marco pushed another paper. The shelter where she works is 3 months behind on rent. It's closing next week. 80 children on the street. Dante smiled. A cold, calculated smile. Perfect. Clara Benedetti was serving soup to the children when the man entered the shelter. She didn't need to ask who he was. Power and danger emanated from him like expensive perfume. Impeccable black suit, Italian shoes that probably cost more than the shelter's monthly budget, black hair combed back, strong jaw, dark eyes that seemed to see through people. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice velvety but with a steely edge. Clara set the ladle aside. "About what?" she asked, wiping her hands on her worn apron. "About saving this place." He gestured around. "And all these children." Clara's heart raced. "Who are you?" "Someone with money. And a proposition." They sat in a quiet corner of the dining room. Dante went straight to the point. He always did. "Marry me. 6 months. On paper only. You get $500,000. The shelter gets a year's rent paid, plus $1 million donation." Clara stared at him as if she had lost her mind. "This is absurd." "It's practical," Dante corrected. "You need money. I need a wife. For 6 months. Why me?" "Because you're perfect for what I need." "Which is?" "None of your business." His voice hardened. "Accept it or not. Decide now. The eviction is on Friday. Clara felt tears burning. This was emotional blackmail. It was wrong. It was the children, she whispered. Exactly. Dante stood up. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. My driver will pick you up. Bring your ID. Wait. There's no time to wait, Principessa. He looked at her one last time, something indefinable passing across his face. Until tomorrow. Clara didn't sleep that night. She knelt beside her bed, hands clasped, trying to pray, but the words wouldn't come. God seemed distant, as in the last few months that had led her to leave the convent. Is this right? She whispered to the void, but she thought of the children's faces, of 5-year-old Maria, who had nightmares every night, of 12-year-old Jorge, who was finally attending school regularly, of all the lives that would crumble if the shelter closed. At 9 o'clock the next morning, she was on the sidewalk with a small bag. The driver didn't say a word the entire way. Dante was waiting for her in a luxurious office that seemed to cost more than anything she had ever owned in her entire life. Ready? He asked. No, she answered honestly, but I'll do it anyway. Something gleamed in his eyes. Respect? Surprise? It vanished too quickly for her to identify. Then let's go. The civil ceremony was quick and sterile. No family, no friends, just witnesses Dante paid. When it was over, he took her to a huge apartment in Manhattan. You stay here, he said, opening the door to a suite the size of the entire shelter. Don't leave without informing my security. Don't talk to the press. Don't cause trouble. And you? Clara asked. I have my own rooms. He pointed to the other side of the apartment. That's only on paper, remember? You don't have to see me if you don't want to. Great, she said, but for some reason, the word came out colder than intended. Dante stopped at the door. Dinner is at 8. You don't have to come, but the cook prepares for 2. He left before she could answer. Clara showed up for dinner, not because she wanted to see Dante, but because the shelter had taught her never to waste food, and wasting a prepared meal was a sin in her book. Dante was already seated, reading something on his tablet, a glass of red wine beside him. He looked up when she entered, surprise quickly crossing his face. I thought you weren't coming, he said. I don't like to waste, Clara replied, sitting down. Practical, he murmured. They ate in tense silence. Clara felt his eyes on her periodically, but whenever she looked, he was focused on his plate. Why did you leave? He asked suddenly. From what? From the convent. Clara put down her fork. Why do you care? Curiosity. I lost my faith, she said simply. It wasn't the whole truth, but it was enough. In God? In easy answers. She stared at him. In the world being black and white, right and wrong, I discovered it's more complicated. Dante studied her with an intensity that made her skin tingle. Yes, it is. And you? Clara dared to ask. Why did you actually marry me? I don't believe it's just what you said. A bet, Dante replied with a cynical smile. I bet I'd marry a saint. You were the only one available. The words should have hurt. They should have made her feel used, cheap. But something in his voice sounded false, as if he were testing her. I'm not a saint, Clara said calmly. I'm just a woman who's made a lot of mistakes. Welcome to the club, princess. In the first few days, Clara barely saw Dante. He left early, returned late, always smelling of danger and secrets. But she noticed small things. Fresh flowers appeared in her room every morning. The cook suddenly started preparing her favorite dishes. How did he know? Books she casually mentioned appeared on the shelf. Did you order this? She asked one night, holding a rare copy of Rumi's poetry. Dante didn't even look up from his laptop. You said you liked it. I mentioned it once. I have a good memory. It's expensive. It's nothing. He cut in, but his shoulders were tense. Clara sat on the opposite sofa. Why do you do this? What? You act like you don't care, but then you do kind things. Now he looked at her, and the intensity almost made her recoil. Don't confuse convenience with kindness, Clara. You're here for 6 months. I can make it comfortable or miserable. I chose comfortable. Why? Because, contrary to what you think, I'm not a monster. I never said I was, she whispered. You didn't need to. He slammed his laptop shut and left. 2 weeks after the wedding, Clara woke to strange sounds coming from the living room. It was 3 a.m. Her heart raced. She grabbed a heavy candlestick and left the room silently. Dante was sitting on the living room floor, his back against the sofa, a half-empty bottle of whiskey beside him, his head in his hands. Blood stained his white shirt. Jesus Christ! Clara dropped the candlestick and rushed to him. You're hurt. I'm fine, he mumbled. pushing her away. You're bleeding. It's just a scratch. Scratches don't fill shirts with blood. She was already pulling at the fabric, exposing a deep cut on his shoulder. This needs stitches. I can't go to the hospital. Why not? She stopped, understanding. Oh, Dante laughed bitterly. Welcome to reality, princess. Now you know who you married. Clara took a deep breath. Where's the first aid kit? No. Where is it? She repeated, her voice firm. He stared at her, surprised, then pointed to the bathroom. Clara returned with the kit and began cleaning the wound. Her hands were surprisingly steady. You've done this before, Dante observed. At the shelter. The children get hurt. And before that, you helped at the convent with the homeless. She focused on the work. Not him. This is going to hurt. Everything hurts, he murmured. She worked silently, disinfecting, closing the cut with butterfly closures since she didn't have sutures. Dante didn't make a sound, but she felt his muscles tense under her hands. Done, she finally said, securing the bandage. Thank you. His voice was hoarse. Clara sat down beside him on the floor, not moving away. Are you going to tell me what happened? No. Is it going to happen again? A long pause. Probably. So I need to know how to deal with gunshot wounds too. Dante turned to her, eyes wide. You aren't scared. I'm terrified, Clara admitted. But you're bleeding on the living room floor and there's no one else. So I'll stay. Something changed in his face. The cynical mask cracked, and for a moment she saw something raw, vulnerable, frightened. You should run, he whispered. Away from me. Probably, she agreed. But I won't. He held her hand, blood-stained fingers intertwining with hers. Why? Because I think you need someone, Clara said softly. And I promise 6 months. I don't break promises. Dante pulled her to him, forehead resting against hers, breaths mingling. You're crazy. You too, she whispered. They stayed like that until the sun rose. Everything changed after that night. Dante started arriving earlier. Dinners turned into long conversations. Conversations turned into confessions. My father used to beat me, he said one night, his voice monotone, until I was old enough to hit back. Then I killed him. Clara didn't move away. How old were you? 16. I'm sorry. Don't be. Dante looked at the empty glass. He deserved it. And I liked it. I think you liked not getting beaten anymore, Clara corrected gently. I think you were scared and alone, and you did what you needed to survive. He stared at her as if she had uncovered some ancient secret. Do you always do this? What? See the best in people, even when it's not there? It's always there. She held his hand. Sometimes it's just buried deep. Dante intertwined his fingers with hers. And you? He asked. What are your sins, St. Clara? She smiled sadly. I want children. I always have. I entered the convent thinking I could stifle that desire with divine purpose, but I woke up every night with empty arms, missing something I never had. That's not holy. It's selfish. It's human. Dante lifted her hand and kissed her fingers, his eyes never leaving hers. It's beautiful. It's a lie I've lived for years. Then stop lying. He pulled her closer until she was practically in his lap. Be human. Be selfish. Be yourself. And what if I don't know who I am? Find out, he whispered against her lips. With me. He kissed her. Not like at their wedding, quick and empty, but slow, deep. A man drowning and catching his breath. Clara responded, fingers digging into his hair, her heart pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. When they parted, both were breathless. This complicates things, she whispered. Yes. This is madness. Yes. I can't stop. I know. Dante smiled, truly smiled, and it was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. Neither do I. But Dante's world didn't allow happiness for long. 3 days later, Clara was returning from the shelter. He insisted she continue her volunteer work, always with a discreet bodyguard, when she saw Dante in the office with 3 men who made him seem almost gentle. Are you sure you can control your whore? One of them spat. Clara froze in the hallway. Watch your words, Vittore. Dante's voice was icy. She's my wife. Wife by bet, I heard. Another laughed. An ex-nun. You must be desperate, Caruso. Get out, Dante ordered. Now. The territory. I said out. The roar even made Clara jump. The men left muttering veiled threats. Dante saw Clara in the hallway. For a second, shame crossed his face. Then the mask returned. How much did you hear? Enough. She entered the office. So it's true? A bet? You already knew that. I knew there was a bet. I didn't know it was still just that for you." His voice trembled. "Clara." "No." She raised her hand. "Don't lie to me. Not after everything." Dante ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "It started as a bet. Yes, but what?" Tears burned now. "But now you care a little. But now I'm convenient. But now you like having someone to mend your wounds and warm your bed. That's not fair." "None of this is fair," Clara exploded. "I sold myself for money. You bought me for territory, and then She couldn't finish. Dante pulled her into his arms. She resisted for a second before collapsing. "Listen to me." He held her face, forcing her to look at him. "It started as a bet. But Clara, you're the only real thing in my life. The only person who looks at me and sees a man, not a monster. Not a business. Just me. How can I believe you?" "You can't," he admitted. "My whole life is lies. But this," he placed her hand over his racing heart, "this is true. You are true." She wanted to believe. God, how she wanted to. "Show me," she whispered. "Prove it to me." "How?" "Trust me," Clara said. "Tell me the truth. About everything." Then Dante told her. About the criminal empire he inherited. About the turf wars. About the bet with Giovanni that could shift the balance of power in the underworld. About the men he wanted to eliminate, and those he needed to protect. "And me," Clara asked when he finished. "Where do I fit into all this?" "You're the only thing that doesn't fit," Dante said. "And that's exactly why you're important." "That doesn't make sense. My whole life is calculated. Strategies, moves, counter-moves. But you're chaos. You're unpredictable. You're the only mistake I've made that I don't regret." "I'm not a mistake." "No," he agreed. "You're a miracle." Clara laughed through her tears. "For a man who doesn't believe in God. You use too many religious terms. Maybe you're converting me." He smiled. "Or corrupting me," she whispered. "Also." They kissed again, more urgently this time. Hands exploring, silent promises being made. But a loud noise interrupted them. Glass shattering, shouts. "Get down!" Dante pushed Clara down as gunshots exploded. The apartment turned into a war zone. Armed men stormed in, but Dante's security guards responded. Clara huddled behind her desk, her ears ringing, her heart pounding in her chest. "Dante!" she screamed. "Here!" He appeared, holding a gun, his face splattered with blood. "We need to get out." He pulled her, running down the hallways as bullets ricocheted. They reached the private elevator, descended to the garage. Dante's driver was already there with the car. "Where to?" the driver shouted. "Safe house. Brooklyn," Dante ordered, pushing Clara inside. During the drive, she trembled uncontrollably. Dante pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. "You're okay. I protect you. Always." "Who was it?" she managed to ask. "Giovanni." Dante spat out the name. "Tired of waiting for the 6 months to end. He wants to kill me?" "No." Dante squeezed her tighter. "He wants to use you against me. But he won't succeed. I'll kill them all first." The coldness in his voice should have frightened her, but Clara only felt protected. "This is crazy," she whispered. "I know." He kissed her hair. "Sorry for dragging you into this." "You're not." She pulled away to look at him. "I chose to stay, remember? You can change your mind. I'll hide you. I'll give you money. You disappear. You're safe." "No," Clara interrupted firmly. "I'm not going anywhere." "Clara, 6 months, remember?" She cupped his face. "I promised." And what?" "And I think I'm falling in love with you," she confessed. "And I don't do anything halfway." Dante stared at her as if she had just changed the world. Then he kissed her with an intensity that stole her breath. "You'll regret it," he whispered against her lips. "Probably," she agreed. But still, the safe house was an industrial loft in Brooklyn, heavily guarded and armed. They stayed there for 3 days while Dante orchestrated his response. Clara watched him work, phone constantly ringing, orders being given, men coming and going with reports. "You're good at this," she commented one night. He looked up from maps scattered across the table. "At what?" "Being a leader. People follow you. They fear me." "No," Clara shook her head. "They respect you. There's a difference." Dante leaned back, studying her. "You always surprise me." "How?" "You should be begging me to get out of this, to leave this life, but you're not." "I'd be happy if you left," Clara admitted. "But I won't beg. You'll only change if you want to. And if I don't want to, then I'll love who you are, not who I want you to be." The silence was thick. Dante stood, walked over to her, pulled her to her feet. "Say it again." "What?" "That you love me." I said I was falling in love. Say you love me, he insisted, hands framing her face. Say it for real. I love you, Clara whispered, her heart exposed. God help me, I love you. Dante kissed her as if she were oxygen, and he were drowning. He carried her to the bedroom, gently placed her on the bed, his eyes never leaving hers. Are you sure? He asked, his voice hoarse. Yes, she pulled him down. I've never been so sure of anything, he whispered, and then showed her with every touch, every kiss, every shared moment. The next morning, Clara woke up alone. Panic gripped her until she saw the note on the bedside table. Coming back soon. Marco is outside. Don't go out. Love you. D. Love you, he wrote. The words made her heart sing, but the day passed, and Dante didn't return. Then night fell. Clara began pacing, her worry growing. Marco tried to reassure her, but she saw tension in his face as well. At 3 a.m, the door opened. Dante entered, his clothes stained with blood. Not his, she hoped. His face exhausted, but victorious. Is it over? Clara asked. For now, he pulled her into his arms. Giovanni backed down. He understood the message. What message? That you are untouchable. That anyone who dares to look at you askance answers to me. You killed someone. It wasn't a question. Yes. For me. Yes. He didn't apologize. Clara should have been horrified. She should have hated violence, death, but when she looked at Dante, all she saw was a man who would cross hell to protect her. Does that make me a bad person? She whispered. If I don't care that you killed for me, that makes you human. Dante kissed her forehead. And mine. Always, she promised. They returned to the main apartment a week later. Life resumed a new normal. Dante managed his shady business. Clara worked at the shelter, but the nights were theirs. Dinners that turned into deep conversations. Conversations that turned into kisses. Kisses that turned into intertwined nights. Tell me something you've never told anyone, Clara asked one night, her fingers tracing patterns on his chest. I'm afraid, Dante admitted quietly. Of what? Of losing you. Of ruining this. Of you waking up one day and realizing you deserve so much better. I love you. Clara stood up to kiss him. That won't change. Promise? I promise. But the universe wouldn't let things be that simple. A month before her 6 months were up, Clara discovered she was pregnant. She stared at the positive test, her hands trembling, conflicting emotions tearing her apart. Joy. She had always wanted children. Terror. What kind of world was she bringing a child into? Hope. Maybe this could change everything. Clara? Dante knocked on the bathroom door. Are you okay? She opened the door, showed him the test. Dante froze completely. You are... Yes. Like, the usual way. She tried to laugh, but it came out as a sob. Dante, say something. He pulled her into a hug so tight she could barely breathe, and then realized he was trembling. Dante, I'm going to be a father, he whispered, his voice filled with wonder. I'm going to have a child. You're happy? He pulled away, cupped her face, and she saw tears glistening in his eyes. Happy doesn't even begin to describe it. Clara, you gave me everything. Love, purpose, and now this. Our baby. She placed her hand on her still flat belly. Ours, he agreed, placing his hand over hers. And I swear on everything I am, he or she will grow up safe, in love, not like I grew up. Then you need to get out, Clara said softly. Out of this life, for our child. Dante closed his eyes, his jaw clenched. You don't know what you're asking. I know exactly. I'm asking you to choose, us or this. It's not that simple. It is, Clara insisted. It's terrifying and complicated, but it's simple. You can find a way out. I know you can. And if you can't, then our child grows up visiting you in prison. Or worse, without you. Is that what you want? The pain in his face was like a punch. No. Then choose, Dante. Choose us. In the following days, Dante was silent, distant, clearly struggling. Clara gave him space, but the tension was suffocating. Then, a week later, he called her into his office. I have a plan, he said. To leave? To transfer operations. Legitimate some deals. Others, pass them on to my lieutenants. It will take time. 6 months, maybe more. But will you do it? For you. For our son. Yes. Clara threw herself into his arms, sobbing with relief. Thank you. Thank you. Hey, he lifted her face. You saved me, remember? This is the least I can do. I love you, she whispered. I love you too much to see you destroy yourself. I love you too. Dante kissed her deeply. more than I thought possible. But not everyone was happy with Dante's decision. Giovanni, in particular, saw it as weakness. You're letting a whore and a bastard soften you up, he spat during a tense meeting. Dante rushed across the table and punched him before anyone could blink. Talk about her again and I'll rip your tongue out, he hissed. Talk about my son and you don't live to regret it. Giovanni spat blood. You're finished, Caruso. No respect, no fear. You're nothing. Then why are you still afraid of me? Dante smiled coldly. You think I've softened up? Try something. See what happens. But that night, Dante came home early, pulled Clara into his arms, and just held her. What happened? She asked. Just let me hold you, he whispered, just for today. And she let him, because she knew. She knew he was battling demons she would never fully understand. But she was there nonetheless. The 6 months of the contract came and went. Neither of them mentioned it. It was implied. This was no longer an agreement. It was a real marriage. Clara was 4 months pregnant when Dante finally took her to meet his associates at a formal event. Are you sure? She asked nervously, smoothing the emerald green dress he insisted she wear. I want everyone to see. Dante kissed her neck. I want them to know you're mine. That this life, he touched her growing belly, is mine. That I have something real. At the event, Clara felt all eyes on her, the women assessing her with envy or contempt, the men calculating her weakness or usefulness. But Dante never left her side, his hand always on her back, silently claiming her. Mrs. Caruso, an older woman approached, a sharp smile. I've heard of you, the nun who tamed the devil. I'm no longer a nun, Clara replied politely, and he's not the devil. No? The woman laughed. Darling, everyone here is a demon. The question is whether you'll survive hell. I've survived the worst. Clara met his gaze. I'll survive this too. The woman studied her, then smiled genuinely. Maybe you will. Dante pulled her away afterward, pride shining in his eyes. You were amazing. I was terrified. It didn't seem like it. He twirled her gently on the dance floor that had just opened. You look like a queen. Your queen? She teased. Always. But the happiness was interrupted when Clara saw a man watching them intently from across the room. Something about him made her freeze. Dante, she whispered. Who is that? Dante followed her gaze, his expression hardening. My brother. You have a brother? Half-brother, Dante corrected stiffly. Luca. We haven't spoken in 10 years. Why? Because he thinks I betrayed him. That I killed our father and stole his inheritance. You did? Yes, Dante admitted. But he doesn't know the whole story. Luca approached, a predatory smile on his face. Dante, what a surprise to see you here. And with a wife. What news? Luca, Dante greeted him coldly. Clara, this is Luca. Luca, my wife, Clara. Delighted. Luca kissed her hand, but his eyes were cold. Pregnant too. You don't waste any time, brother. What do you want? Dante cut in. Just welcoming the family. Luca smiled. After all, family is everything, isn't it? The tension was palpable. Clara felt Dante vibrate with contained anger. We should go, she said softly. Yes, Dante agreed, guiding her away. But Luca called after them. Careful, Clara. My brother has a habit of destroying everything he loves. Dante turned, but Clara grabbed his arm. No, he wants a reaction. Don't give it to him. After a moment, Dante agreed, but the tension remained. Tell me about Luca, Clara asked when they arrived home. Dante poured a shot of whiskey, downed it, poured another. He's 3 years younger. My father's son with another woman. We grew up together after his mother died. Were you close? Very, until the night I killed our father. What happened? Dante sighed heavily. Our father was going to kill Luca. He found out Luca was gay, called him a freak, grabbed a gun. I intervened. We fought. The shot that killed my father was meant for Luca, so you saved him. He didn't see it that way. He saw that I took control of the empire, excluded him from operations. He thinks I used that night as an excuse to steal everything. Why didn't you tell him the truth? I tried. He didn't believe me. And after a while I stopped trying. Clara held his hands. Maybe it's time to try again. Why? Because family is important, and our son deserves to meet his uncle. Dante stared at her as if she'd lost her mind. You can't be serious. I always am. Clara, he hates me, because he's hurt. But you can fix that. I can't fix everything. No, she agreed. But you can try. Dante pulled her into his arms, resting his chin on the top of her head. What did I do to deserve you? You bet with me, she smiled. Best bet I ever made. Dante reached out to Luca. Tense meetings in neutral cafes. Conversations that started hostile and ended less so. Slowly, very slowly, the truth emerged. Was he really going to kill me? Luca asked during a meeting 3 weeks later. Yes, Dante replied simply. Why didn't you tell me? Because you were in shock. Because I didn't know how. Because, after a while, it seemed too late. 10 years, Dante. 10 years I hated you. I know. We could have been a family. We still can, Dante said carefully. If you want. Luca looked at him for a long time. Your wife, she made you soft. She made me better. Is there a difference? All of it. Dante smiled slightly. And you're really leaving? I am. For her. For our son. For me, I guess. Luca nodded slowly. Then maybe we can try. Yes. Dante reached out his hand. Maybe we can. They shook hands, and although it wasn't complete forgiveness, it was a start. Clara was 7 months pregnant when Dante finally dismantled his last illegal operations. Some businesses were legitimized. Others sold. Some shut down more permanently. It's over, he said one night, returning home and kneeling before her, hands on her enormous belly. I'm out. Completely? Completely. He kissed her belly. I'm just a boring businessman now. Never boring, Clara laughed, running her fingers through his hair. But I'm proud. Me too, he admitted. I never thought I could. But you made me believe I could be more. You always were more. She lifted her face. You just needed to allow yourself to be. He rose to kiss her, deep and tender. I love you, so much that sometimes it hurts. Good pain or bad pain? The best pain, he smiled. But the happiness was interrupted when Clara felt a sharp pain. Dante, what? What was that? I think, oh God. She looked down. Liquid stained the floor. I'm going into labor. But there are still 7 weeks to go. Dante panicked. Babies don't care about schedules, Clara yelled as another contraction hit. The hospital was a chaotic blur. Doctors, nurses, beeping machines. Dante held Clara's hand through it all, pale but steady. You can do this, he whispered. You're the strongest woman I know. This is your fault, she screamed during a particularly brutal contraction. I know, sorry, I'm so sorry. Never touch me again. Yeah, okay, whatever you want. But when finally, after 8 exhausting hours, a baby's cry filled the room, Clara saw tears streaming down Dante's face. A girl, the nurse announced, placing the tiny swaddled baby in Clara's arms. Dante touched her cheek with tremendous reverence. She's perfect. She's ours, Clara whispered, exhausted, but radiant. Our daughter. What are we going to name her? Clara looked at the baby, at Dante, and smiled. Esperanza. It means hope. Esperanza Caruso. Dante tested the name, then kissed his daughter's forehead. Perfect. Just like you. Just like your mother. We made her, Clara marveled. Yes. Dante kissed her gently. We did. 3 months later, Dante came home to find Clara breastfeeding Esperanza in the living room, the evening light bathing them in gold. He paused in the doorway, simply observing. His wife, his daughter, his family, his redemption. Are you going to stand there or are you going to hold your daughter? Clara teased without looking up. Dante chuckled, joined them, and took Esperanza when Clara finished. The baby looked at him with big dark eyes, so much like his own. Hi, little princess, he whispered. Your daddy loves you so much. She has you wrapped around her little finger, Clara observed. Completely, Dante agreed shamelessly. Just like her mother. No regrets? Clara asked softly. About what? Everything. The bet. Me. This life. Dante looked at her, looked at his daughter, back at her. My only regret is that it took me so long to find you. You found me exactly when you needed me. Clara snuggled closer to him. We saved ourselves. Yes. Dante kissed her hair, then Esperanza's head. Yes, we saved ourselves. And there, in that room bathed in the sunset, a Mafia boss who gambled on a former nun discovered that the real prize wasn't territory or power. It was love. It was family. It was redemption. It was home. And for the first time in his violent and brutal life, Dante Caruso was at peace. But of course, the past is never truly buried. 6 months after Esperanza's birth, Dante received a call. Giovanni was dead, murdered, and the feds were investigating. They can't link you to anything, Marco assured him during an emergency meeting. You've been clean for months. But they will investigate, Dante knew. They'll turn every stone over. Let them. Clara said firmly, Esperanza sleeping in her arms. You have nothing to hide. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. She cut him off. Your past is coming back, but you're not that man anymore. Be who you are now. Face it. Dante looked at her, his wife, his anchor, his strength, and nodded. Okay, I'll face it. The investigations lasted for months. Interrogations, paperwork, stress. But Dante was clean, truly clean. And eventually they moved on. It's really over now, Clara said when the final notification arrived. It's finally over. It's over, Dante agreed, pulling her and Esperanza into a hug. And we can live. We can be boring. She laughed. A boring, normal family. We'll never be completely normal, Dante smiled. But we can try. 2 years later, Esperanza was taking her first unsteady steps around the apartment while Clara was pregnant again. A boy this time. Are you sure you want another one? Dante asked, hands on her 5-month pregnant belly. Esperanza is a whirlwind, just like her father, Clara teased. And yes, I want a house full of children. I want what I never had. I want to give our children everything. You already do, Dante kissed her. Love, security, an amazing mother, and a father who would kill for them, Clara added softly. Always, Dante didn't deny. But I hope I never have to. Me too. Luca visited regularly now, Esperanza's proud uncle, bringing ridiculously expensive gifts and spoiling her completely. You're going to spoil her, Dante complained. It's my job as an uncle, Luca smiled. Besides, you owe me 2 decades of birthdays. Math isn't your strong suit, Dante retorted, but he was smiling. Clara watched her siblings. Her heart warmed. She fixed it. She brought a family back. What are you thinking about? Dante asked later, when they were alone. About how a stupid bet changed everything, she admitted. It did, he agreed. Do you regret it? Not for a second. Clara kissed him. It was the best bet anyone ever made. Giovanni is probably turning in his grave. Good, she said without remorse. He was awful. Dante laughed, the sound genuine and free. God, I love you. I know, she smiled. And I love you too. When Lorenzo, named after Clara's grandfather who died when she was a child, was born, Dante held his son with the same tremendous reverence he had held Esperanza. A boy, he whispered in amazement. We have one of each. Are you disappointed? Clara asked, tired but watching. Disappointed? Clara, I have no words. Try. Dante looked at her, his eyes shining. I thought I would die alone, violently, with no one to mourn. And now I have this. You, Esperanza, Lorenzo, a family, a life. I don't deserve this. Everyone deserves love, Clara said firmly. Especially you. You saved me, Dante confessed. From that life, from myself. We saved each other, she corrected. I was as lost as you were, but we found each other. Yes, he kissed her, then Lorenzo's head. Yes, we found each other. The years passed in a blissful haze of diapers, first words, first steps, sleepless nights, and endless love. Dante had completely transformed his empire. Now he owned legitimate hotels, restaurants, real estate. Nothing dark, nothing dangerous. Are you happy? Clara asked on their 5th wedding anniversary, 3 years longer than the original agreement. Honestly, always. Dante pulled her onto the apartment balcony, city lights twinkling below. I'm happier than I ever thought possible. Happier than I deserve. You deserve everything, Clara insisted. You changed. You chose to change. For you. For you too. She touched his face. You wanted something better. You just needed a push. A push? You completely knocked me down, he laughed. And thank God for that. They kissed under the stars, 2 unlikely lovers who had found salvation in each other. But then, when Esperanza was 4, and Lorenzo too, something happened that tested everything. Clara was taking the children to the park when she noticed a man following them. Her heart racing, she grabbed her cell phones and dialed Dante. Someone's following me. Where are you? His voice was pure, controlled panic. Park near home. I'll stay here. Marco and security are on their way. 2 minutes. Clara picked up Esperanza and Lorenzo, feigning calm. Let's play a game, okay? Let's walk really fast to that cafe over there. Why, Mommy? Esperanza asked. Just because, darling. Let's go. She entered the crowded cafe, sat where she could see the door. The man stopped outside, watching. Then Marco arrived with 2 security guards, and the man disappeared. Dante arrived 30 seconds later, sweeping Esperanza and Lorenzo in his arms. checking on Clara. "Are you okay? Are the children okay?" "We're fine," Clara assured him, but she was trembling. "Who was it?" "I don't know, but I'll find out." And he found out. It turned out to be an investigative journalist looking for a story about the reformed Mafia boss. Nothing dangerous, but the reminder was brutal. "My past will always haunt us," Dante said that night, head in his hands. "No," Clara sat beside him. "Your past is part of you, but it doesn't define you. Not anymore. What if something happens to you because of me? Then we face it together." She held his hands, like we always have. Dante pulled her into his arms, holding her as if she were about to disappear. "I wouldn't survive losing you." "You won't," Clara promised. "We are strong. Together." And they were. When Esperanza started school and other children asked what her father did, Dante prepared her. "Tell them I own hotels and restaurants, it's true. But the children say you were bad before," Esperanza said with wide eyes. Dante knelt down to her level. "I was. I did bad things. But I changed because I met your mother, and because I wanted to be a good father to you and Lorenzo. People can change, Principessa. Remember that. You are a good father." Esperanza hugged him. "The best." Dante looked at Clara over Esperanza's head, and she saw tears in her eyes. Later, when the children were asleep, he pulled her into his arms. "Thank you." "For what?" "For believing I could change, for giving me a reason to change, for giving me everything." "You gave me everything too," Clara said. "A family, purpose, love. Then we're even." He smiled. "Never." She kissed him. "I'll always owe you for that first bet. Best bet I ever accepted." Years later, when Esperanza was 10 and Lorenzo 8, the family was having dinner when Esperanza asked, "How did you two meet?" Dante and Clara exchanged glances. "Well," Dante began carefully, "it was complicated. Your father made a silly bet," Clara said, "and I accepted because I needed money." "A bet?" Lorenzo frowned. "What kind?" "He bet he would marry someone unlikely, and I was quite unlikely." Clara smiled. "Why?" Esperanza asked. "Because I was a nun. Or was." The children's eyes widened. "You were a nun?" they both shouted. "I was," Clara laughed. "And your father was, well, he wasn't a nun. He was the opposite," Dante added dryly. "So how did you fall in love?" Esperanza wanted to know. Dante looked at Clara, love so obvious in his eyes that the children went, "Oh, your mother saw something in me that no one else saw. She saw that I could be better, and she made me want to be. And your father showed me that I could be human, that it was okay to want things, to want love, to want family," Clara added. "You guys are so corny," Lorenzo complained, but he was smiling. "Yes," Dante agreed. "We are," and he didn't care one bit. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Dante took Clara out to an elegant dinner. Luca stayed with the children, spoiling them as always. 10 years, Dante said, raising his glass of wine. "Who would have imagined?" "Not me," Clara admitted. "When you walked into that shelter, I thought you were crazy. You were. For you. You still are," she teased. "I always will be," he agreed. "Clara, these 10 years have been the best of my life. You've given me everything that matters." "You too," she intertwined their fingers. "You saved me as much as I saved you. So, shall we go for the next 10? Dante proposed. "The next 50, Clara corrected. "Forever." He kissed her across the table. When they returned home, they found Luca asleep on the sofa, the children building an elaborate fortress of cushions in the living room. "Surprise!" they shouted when they saw their parents. "Uncle Luca said we could have a party." Dante looked at his brother, who shrugged innocently. "They convinced me." "Of course they did." Dante rolled his eyes, but he was smiling. "Come here, you two." Esperanza and Lorenzo ran into his arms. Clara joined the hug, and Luca snapped a picture with his phone. "Perfect," he murmured. And it was. Perfectly imperfect. Perfectly chaotic. Perfectly theirs. More years passed. Dante expanded his legitimate businesses, became a respected philanthropist, specifically for children's shelters, in homage to how he met Clara. "You're getting soft," Luca teased. "I'm getting better," Dante corrected. And it was true. The man who once ruled the underworld with violence now ruled boardrooms with intelligence and dining rooms with love. "Do you have any regrets?" Clara asked on her 15th birthday. "About leaving that life?" "Not one," Dante said immediately. "Everything I lost is worthless compared to what I gained. Even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. He pulled her into his arms. Because in the hard times, I have you. I have our family. That's all I need. You're a romantic, she accused. Only with you, princess. Only with you. When Esperanza turned 18 and was going to college, she asked her father, "Are you afraid that I'll find out things about your past?" Dante sighed heavily. "Yes, because some things I did are unforgivable. You killed people. It wasn't a question." "Yes." Esperanza was silent for a long moment. "Do you regret it?" "Some things. Others, I can't. Because without that life, I would never have met your mother. I would never have you and Lorenzo. It's twisted logic. It's honesty." Dante met her eyes. "Esperanza, I'm not going to lie to you. I was a bad man. I did bad things, but I changed. Not because it was easy, but because it was worth it. Because you were worth it." Esperanza hugged him tightly. "You're a good father. That's what matters to me." Dante held his daughter, his heart overflowing. "I love you so much, Principessa. I love you too, Daddy." Clara watched from the doorway, tears in her eyes, her family, her life. It all started with an absurd bet and blossomed into something beautiful. 20 years after their wedding, Dante and Clara sat on the balcony, the same one where they had kissed so many years ago, watching the sunset. "Are you happy?" she asked. The same question as always. "I'm complete," he replied, as always. "Is there a difference?" "All the difference in the world." Dante turned to her. "Happiness is a moment. Completeness is a state. And with you, with our family, I am complete. Even after everything, the chaos, the danger, the changes, especially because of this." Dante held her hand. "Clara, you took a broken man and remade him. You didn't save me. You rebuilt me. Piece by piece. We rebuilt ourselves," she corrected. "Together. Together," he agreed. They sat in comfortable silence, hands intertwined, lives intertwined. "Do you regret anything?" Dante finally asked. "That bet, that crazy marriage?" Clara thought of everything. The initial fear, the complications, the danger, but also the love, the children, the family they built. "Not a second," she said. "It was the best decision I ever made, even when I sent it to you as a bet, especially because of that." She echoed his words. "Because it shows that even the most unlikely beginnings can lead to the most beautiful endings." Dante kissed her, softly and deeply. 20 years of love in a touch. "I love you, Principessa. Today, tomorrow, always, always," Clara promised. And there, under the stars of New York, a former mob boss and a former nun, bound by an absurd wager, forged by fire, saved by love, knew a fundamental truth. Sometimes the best stories begin in the most unlikely places. Sometimes redemption comes from the most unexpected source. And sometimes, just sometimes, a wager can change everything. Dante Caruso wagered he would marry a saint. He won much more than territory or power. He won a life, a family, a purpose. He won Clara, the woman who saw through his darkness and believed in the light he could become. And Clara Benedetti, who accepted an impossible proposition to save children, won something she always wanted but never dared to dream of, a family of her own, a love that defied all odds, and proof that people can change. They began as strangers bound by necessity. They became lovers bound by passion. And finally, they remained a family bound by choice. Because in the end, it wasn't circumstances that defined them. It was a choice. The choice to stay. The choice to fight. The choice to love. And as the sun set over New York, painting the sky pink and gold, Dante and Clara knew the best bet they ever made was on each other. Always. Forever. Without regrets. 25 years after their wedding, the Long Island mansion, bought when Lorenzo turned 10 because their apartment had become too small, was teeming with life and noise. Dante was in the kitchen preparing breakfast when tiny arms wrapped around his legs. "No, no, no, no," his 3-year-old granddaughter Sophia cried. "Pick me up." He lifted her into the air, making her giggle at that sound that melted her heart. "Good morning, little princess. Where's your mother?" "Mommy's with the baby." Sophia pointed to the living room, where Esperanza, now 28, was breastfeeding her second child, a 2-month-old boy named Dante, in honor of his grandfather. "Daddy's spoiling her again," Esperanza commented, but she was smiling. "It's my job," Dante retorted, placing Sophia on the counter and handing her a piece of strawberry. "Besides, you made the same face when you were 3. Impossible. I was an angel. You destroyed my entire office with permanent markers, he reminded her. Art, Esperanza corrected with dignity. It was abstract art. Clara came down the stairs, her hair now streaked with silver that Dante found absolutely beautiful, wearing a comfortable robe. Has the mess already started? She asked, kissing her granddaughter and then her husband. Always, Dante murmured against her lips. Oh, Nonna and Nonno are kissing again, Sophia complained dramatically. Get used to it, little one. Lorenzo came in through the back door, sweaty from his morning run, his fiancée Rachel beside him. They never stop. Nor do we intend to, Dante said shamelessly, pulling Clara closer. When is the wedding again? Clara asked Lorenzo. 3 months, Rachel replied, a huge smile on her face. And we're terrified. Normal, Esperanza assured her. I threw up twice before walking down the aisle. Very reassuring, sis. Lorenzo rolled his eyes. You threw up? Dante frowned at his daughter. I didn't know that. Why would you have panicked? Esperanza said sensibly. You panicked when my water broke with Sophia. You were 3 weeks ahead, Dante defended himself, and screaming that you were going to die. I was in labor. It's okay to dramatize. The front door opened, and Luca entered with his husband of 15 years, Marcus, carrying bags of bagels. The cavalry has arrived, Luca announced. Uncle Luca! Sophia leaped from the counter straight into his arms. Did you bring presents? Sophia Elena Moretti, Esperanza scolded. We didn't ask for presents. But did you bring any? Sophia whispered to Luca. Always, he whispered back, winking. Marcus shook his head affectionately. You spoil her too much. It's literally my life's purpose, Luca retorted. Dante watched the chaos. His growing family sprawled across the kitchen, laughing and arguing and loving, and felt a pang in his chest. Are you okay? Clara asked softly, knowing him all too well. I'm overwhelmed, he admitted. In a good way. Very different from 25 years ago. Light years. He looked around. Back then I had an empty dining table in a quiet apartment. Now I have this. Noise and chaos, she teased. Life, he corrected. Love, all that matters. After the chaotic breakfast, while the younger ones took Sophia to the garden, Dante and Clara walked to the greenhouse he had built for her 10 years ago, a tranquil place full of flowers and light. Remember when I first brought you here? He asked, sitting on the stone bench. You were so nervous, Clara laughed, sitting beside him. You thought I wouldn't like it, because you always said you wanted a garden, and I thought a greenhouse wasn't the same thing. And I cried because it was perfect, she finished. Because you listened to me. You always have. I still listen. Dante held her hand, running his thumb over her wedding ring. They renewed their vows on their 10th anniversary, a real ceremony this time, with family and friends and genuine love. Clara, I need to tell you something. The serious tone made her turn completely. What? Are you sick? No, he quickly reassured her. I was just thinking about everything, about how it could have been different. Different how? If I had made different choices, if I hadn't entered that life, then you wouldn't be you, Clara interrupted firmly. And I fell in love with you. All of you, including the broken parts you think you need to hide. They're not broken anymore, Dante said in amazement. You fixed them. We fixed them, she corrected. Together, like everything. He pulled her into his arms, resting his chin on the top of her head. Did you know I remember the exact moment I fell in love with you? When? That night you tended to my wound. You were wearing ridiculous pajamas with cats. It was comfortable, Clara protested, laughing. It was lovely, Dante continued. And you were so focused, cleaning up the blood, fearless, without judgment. And I thought, this woman is going to destroy me. And you did. You destroyed all my defenses, all my walls. You left me completely vulnerable. And you hated it, Clara remembered. At first, yes, but then I realized vulnerable with you was safer than being protected alone. When did you know you loved me? She asked, curious. She'd asked that before, but his answer always evolved. Dante thought, honestly, when you said you'd stay, after the attack, you could have run. You should have run. But you stayed. And I thought, this woman is braver than any soldier I've ever known. And then I thought, this woman is mine. And then just, I love her. So romantic. Clara wiped away a tear. I've always been a poet, he joked. You're many things, love, Poet isn't one of them. She laughed. Rude. Completely rude. But true. They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the muffled sound of Sophia's laughter in the garden. She looks like you, Dante commented. Sophia. Esperanza. At her age. The same stubbornness. The same kindness. She looks like you too. The eyes. The way she protects the people she loves. She's better than me, Dante said. Kinder. More patient. Because she had you as a father. She had love. Security. Everything you didn't have. Thanks to you. Thanks to us, Clara insisted again. Dante turned to face her, memorizing her face, the wrinkles around her eyes that appeared when she laughed, the silver strands of hair she refused to dye, the deep kindness that never faded despite everything they had seen together. You're staring at me, Clara observed. I'm memorizing you. You've known me for 25 years. And I still discover new things. He touched her face. Like yesterday, when you sang to baby Dante. I'd never heard you sing that song. It was a lullaby my mother used to sing, Clara said softly. I hadn't thought about it in years, but holding our grandson, it just came back. You were a great mother, Dante said. You're a great grandmother. Nonna, she tested the word. It's still strange. You're 53. You're too young to be a grandmother. Tell that to my niece, she joked. Lorenzo appeared in the greenhouse doorway. Excuse me for interrupting, but Sophia is asking about Nono. Something about a unicorn emergency. Dante sighed dramatically, but was smiling. Unicorn emergencies are serious. I'll handle it. Of course you will. Clara gently nudged him. You will. After he left, Lorenzo sat down beside his mother. You two are still so in love, he observed. Does it bother you? Clara asked. No, it's just rare. Most of my friends have divorced parents. Or married, but miserable. You two are happy. We are, Clara confirmed. It wasn't always easy. Because of his past? Because of life, Clara corrected. Marriage is work, but worthwhile work. Rachel and I, are we going to be like this? Lorenzo asked, suddenly vulnerable. You can be, Clara held his hand. If you choose to be, every day, even on the hard days. How do you always choose him? Even knowing what he was? Lorenzo struggled with it sometimes, Clara knew. The knowledge of his father's violent past. Because he's not that man anymore. He chose to change. For me. For you. For himself. And that choice every day makes me love him more. He loves you so much, Lorenzo said. It's almost scary sometimes, the way he looks at you. Like I'm his whole world. Exactly. Because I am, Clara said simply. And he's mine. We found each other when we needed each other most. And we didn't let go. That night, after everyone had left, after the house was cleaned and silence returned, Dante and Clara lay in bed. Long day, she murmured, snuggling against him. Good day, he corrected, his arm around her. Too noisy. You loved every second. I did, he admitted. But I also love this. Just us. Quiet. We're old, Clara joked, preferring quiet to parties. Speak for yourself. I'm in my prime, Dante retorted. You're 58. Exactly. Prime. Clara laughed, the muffled sound against her chest. I love you, you idiot. I love you too, my saint. I'm not a saint. To me, you always will be. He kissed her hair. You saved me. You redeemed me. You gave me everything. You saved yourself, Clara insisted. I was just there. You were there. That's all that mattered. Dante pulled her closer. Clara? Thank you. For what? For staying. For believing. For loving me when I wasn't lovable. You were always lovable, she said. It was just hidden, but it was always there. They fell asleep intertwined, as they had every night for the past 25 years. And in the silent darkness, Dante thought, not for the first time, how a foolish bet had changed everything, how a moment of arrogance had led to the greatest gift of his life, how marrying a former nun for territory had taught him that the only territory that mattered was the space beside her in bed, the place at the dinner table, the home they had built together. And as he slept, Dante Caruso, former Mafia boss, husband, father, grandfather, smiled because he had bet on a saint and won paradise. 30 years after their wedding, Dante woke up at 5 a.m. as usual. But this time, he couldn't fall back asleep. Something was pulling him back. Silently, so as not to wake Clara, he got out of bed, went downstairs, and went to his office. There, locked in a drawer that no one ever opened, was a box. He opened it. Inside was the original marriage contract, 6 months, $500,000. Territory. Everything so clinical, so cold. He looked at his young, arrogant signature, at Clara's nervous signature, and he chuckled softly. What's so funny at 5 a.m? Clara appeared in the doorway, her robe wrapped around her. This. He showed her the contract. Our beginning. Clara sat on his lap, studying the paper. So idiotic. Completely. And you were going to divorce me after 6 months, she pointed out. I never had the chance, Dante said. You hooked me too quickly. You let me, she corrected. You let your guard down. Worst mistake I ever made, he said seriously. She stared at him, a wound beginning to show, but then he smiled. Because now you know all my secrets. Too late to escape. Idiot. She slapped his shoulder, but she was laughing. He picked up the contract, took it to the fireplace, and lit it. What are you doing? Clara asked. Erasing the past, Dante said, watching the paper catch fire. This contract means nothing. It never did. It meant something, Clara argued. It brought us together. No, Dante turned to her. It put us in the same space. But what brought us together was choice. Love, commitment, not a piece of paper. So we're married without a contract now? She teased. We're married because we chose to be. He pulled her into his arms. Every day, for 30 years, and every day that remains. Clara kissed him, slow and deep. 3 decades of love in a touch. How many years do you think we have? She whispered. At least 100, Dante said. You're crazy. For you. Always. Good. She snuggled against him, watching the contract turn to ashes. Because I'm not going anywhere. Neither am I, Principessa, he promised. Neither am I. And as the sun rose over their mansion, over their family, over the life they had built of bets and choices and love, Dante Caruso knew a final truth. The best bet isn't the one you win. It's the one that completely transforms you. And Clara Benedetti, his wife, his salvation, his everything, was the bet that transformed him from monster to man, from alone to beloved, from lost to found. And he would spend every remaining day proving that she had made the right bet too, because together they were invincible. Together they were home. Together they were forever. And as the sun rose over his mansion, over his family, over the life they had built on bets, choices, and love, Dante Caruso knew a final truth. The best bet isn't the one you win. It's the one that completely transforms you. And Clara Benedetti, his wife, his salvation, his everything, was the bet that transformed him from a monster into a man, from alone into beloved, from lost into found. And he would spend every remaining day proving that she had made the right bet too. Because together, they were invincible. Together they were home. Together, they were forever. And you? Would you agree to marry a stranger to save the one you love? Did this story touch you? Did it make you feel something? Then don't keep it to yourself. Like if you also believe that people can change for love. Comment, telling me which part gave you the most goosebumps. I read them all. Subscribe, because every day we have stories like this, of impossible love, redemption, and endings you'll never expect. Seriously, don't leave without commenting. Tell me, were you rooting for Dante from the beginning, or did it take you a while to trust him? I want to know everything you felt. Your opinion matters a lot to me. See you in the next story. I promise it will be just as intense as this one. With love and lots of drama.